Ciao Piero.
Hey, good morning.
Come va?
Bene, come stai?
Molto bene, grazie. Sono qui in ristorante.
Molto figo, James. Vedo tutte le persone dentro di te che mangiano.
Well, listen, thanks for joining me. I know you've been running around with the pandemic and everything. I got mine too. I love it. Like, let's just get into it. Like, so congratulations, and how does it feel to be wine of the year for JamesSuckling.com? And just tell me about what you're thinking. It's such an amazing wine.
We didn't know that we were in the running. We had no idea. We were blown away by the 100 points in February, and it's an incredible, humbling experience. You quickly realize the importance of your team and the contribution that nature gives to the process. Because often we like to think that we're in control, while we very seldomly are fully conscious that without microclimatic conditions and the right season, our work can go away very quickly, no matter how diligent and how hard you work. So it's a culmination of a couple of things. One is the great work of the team. It's incredible microclimate in which Chacra is in, which is very conducive to organic and biodynamic farming. Of course, you're ecstatic. Then the first thought that came into my mind is like, okay, now we got to go back to work, because after 100 points, you need to work. I feel that you need to work 10 times as much and to be more diligent, because the pressure is on much more. And I love that. I love that because it incentivates you and incentivates the team, and it gives a boost to everyone that nobody's expecting.
Now, and what did they think in Argentina? Where it was like winning World Cup or something? Did you get a lot of people like Argentina,
yeah. So James, being Italian and coming from Tuscany, I think we are accustomed of decades and centuries of excellence in many different areas, whether it's food, clothing, all sorts of industries. My feeling when you get to Argentina, and if you look at the Mundial that they won with Maradona, is that it's a great country with great people, but often they don't get to compete at the highest level in different industries like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so when we won this, I think it was an incredible sense of pride, because in this tiny little village in the middle of the desert, we managed to reach such a pinnacle. It's an inspiration for the human spirit, that no matter where you are, no matter if you are any color, any race, of any religion, if you work very, very, very hard, excellence can be achieved, and that lifts everyone. So I think that for my team, that some of them, when I got there, they live in mud huts. Some of them don't have electricity. Some of them did not have running water.
Wow.
And even though I share with them what we're doing, why we're doing it, and they're always very much in the know of everything, getting to this level it made them believe in themselves. It made them believe in possibilities. It made them believe that there is something that can be achieved if you work very hard.
It's like, I'm not trying to say that. And what's interesting is the way I see it too was, I just found the wine is so compelling, amazing wine from a part of the world that a lot of people don't know, that is biodynamic. And I know the hard work, you own part of Sassicaia, but this is something you created on your own. And that's what is so amazing, but also that added side to it. And really, in the end, it's definitely not about me. It was only that I saw this jewel and I said, well, what should be the wine of the year this year? And I'm just like, well, the most exciting wine I tasted out of 18,000 wines in the world, from big names to small names, was your wine, because it was just so special. And not only is it a perfect wine, but it is such a special wine too. And what you're doing is so special. And in terms of storytelling, it's really a story to tell. And what you just said even confirms it more. It's almost like there's a lesson there. It's like a fable. It's amazing. So congratulations, and thank you so much for having the foresight for creating the wine and making the wine. It's just so amazing what you've done. Like, and like, how did you make such a perfect wine? Was it really an act of God? Was it biodynamics? What was it?
I think it's always a series of elements, as you know better than me, because one individual doesn't make one wine. There is maybe 15,000 different decisions that you make through the course of 365 days. And you never know at that point what the repercussion of some decision would have. In terms of Chacra, it was a very challenging journey. We started with a vineyard that was abandoned, that was planted in 1932. And when we got there, the vineyard was not in a very good shape. So I think it's a culmination of 17 years of work that we've done to slowly restore these older vines and gently, without provoking any shocks, bring them back to a healthier immune system, more of a balanced immune system. The largest job I feel was really the one to converting the soils into more fluffiness. So reverting the compactation that is created during the years because we have a little bit of clay. And with the reversal of the compactation, worms came back, oxygen came back, a lot of fauna came back, believe it or not. So butterflies, bees, ladybugs, birds came back and started to nest in the vineyards. Hares, little armadillos that came back from the desert. They're eating all the ants. So in a way, we managed to restore balance and restore the original settings of the place. I think it's a progression of 17 years, and finally, over the last 4 years, we've seen a shift, a dramatic shift in all aspects of the vineyard and in all aspects of the soils. Right now, when you walk into our vineyards, it feels a little bit like a mattress. The soils are softer and they're filled with cover crop of all different kinds. We had to meticulously do soil analysis in every single plot to understand its characteristics and then intervene with cover crop that is tailor made for that specific plot. We eliminated completely the new oak. We've introduced some portion of cement aging. Of course, all of these, it's a sum of many elements and decisions that have been sort of added through the years.
Look at here first. Salute, complimenti tanti auguri. Congratulations. I'm sorry we can't do this together in person, but so how important do you think your biodynamic farming has been to make such a monumental wine, such a perfect and meaningful wine?
I don't think that the wines will have this purity, transparency, energy, and crunchiness if we did not apply organic and biodynamic farming. But I also think that, we started to pick earlier and earlier, which typically could be a danger because you could have wines that are a little bit hard, maybe a little tannic, maybe a little green. But in this case, with that climatic condition, the luminosity is very intense, and our vineyards are very old genetic material because it's all ungrafted vineyards, Massal selection. So picking early, I speculate due to the very complex root system, it does not give us wines that are hard or green. But on the contrary, I feel we're capturing an energy that is still pushing up. And we managed to capture this energy, and through the fermentation, we managed to keep it, and then this is the end result. Of course, James, nothing that I tell you is the absolute truth. This is a collection of experiences that work
Yes.
for us, and I don't know what the truth is. These are just our truths, which are different in every part of the world, in every microclimate of the world, and for every grape. But
Yeah,
so
but
I think that's what gave an incredible contribution. It's also the picking, the moment in which you pick. So it's like an athlete that's at its prime. So we prepare the athlete; he's in a very good shape, and the picking, it's like the best, the race day, which
yeah,
gives the little hit.
I understand. And uh, when you found the vineyard, was it originally planted to Pinot or was it Malbec and you grafted over?
So now the 1932 vineyard was always a Pinot vineyard.
Oh,
Of
okay.
course, as in any other vineyard in the world planted in the 30s, as you know better than me because you literally travel in every single wine region, there were some other plants inside, you
Yeah.
know, probably because the nursery in those days, when they shipped the genetic material, the plants, it was mixed. This still happens today, by the way. A nursery send you 7,000 plants and you might have 30 plants of white grapes. And you're like, what does it do here? So, of course, we had in that vineyard, we found some plants of Trousseau and we found some
Oh,
plants
cool.
of Malbec. And we haven't taken them away, James, because I feel that the identity of a vineyard, it's the sum of all its parts. And I think what gives you an authentic character, it's exactly that. It's the communion of the genetic material with the soil composition and then the microclimate condition. So, of course, we have 2-3% of Trousseau in this vineyards. Maybe there is another 20 plants of Malbec, but 98% is Pinot, but there were a little bit of other things. So what we've done, of course, as any other vineyard that is so old, some vines were dead, some vines were missing. So we took our own pruning from the very same vineyard, and we have our own nursery in the farm. So the idea, it's instead of going to adopt a baby, so to buy some new vines from a different country or a different region, we made the baby ourselves. So the baby was born at Chacra, was raised at Chacra, and then it was replanted in the 1932 vineyards. So we're keeping our genetic material because I feel that when I first came to Patagonia and I was flying over the region, I thought to myself, what the hell? You just made the biggest mistake of your life. It doesn't look like Burgundy. It doesn't look like Piedmont. It doesn't look like Oregon. You're going into a desert. You're such a loser. You have no idea. And then once you get down there, at first, nothing makes sense because, of course, you bring your criteria of Europe, which can be applied there because the set of rules are completely different. And I speculate and I realize while Pinot maybe was not happy there in the beginning, after almost 100 years, it mutated enough time to find its comfort zone and actually to thrive. So they say that Pinot is one of the grapes that mutates the fastest in the vineyards. They also say that it's completely transparent and it gives you whatever it finds. That's why it's very finicky and it's very delicate as a plant. So
So,
I never thought at first that this was a great region for Pinot because my superficial analysis from 30,000 feet was not well informed. But once we got down there, everything started to make sense and it made sense more and more and more.
like that whole backstory to the wine makes me think um, that actually the Chacra Pinot Noir is something very unique. It's something that you really can't compare to Burgundy. You can't say it's Oregon or Northern Italy or Australia or New Zealand. Do you think that that is this a new that's it, is how would you describe it? What do you say? Like you can't say, oh, we're the Burgundy of Patagonia. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
Argentina. It's something really unique to itself. Am I
Yeah,
wrong?
yeah, I agree with you. You know, first of all, we're not copying anyone. You can't copy anything. I grew up in a very privileged setting where my grandfather, who was a little bit like a dad to all of us, the nephews, showed us whatever was possible and showed us the audacity of imagining a different reality. And hence,
With Sassicaia.
that's how
Yeah.
Sassicaia was born, right? And so Sassicaia was never meant to imitate anyone. Sassicaia was meant to provide a liquid form, the best expression of the terroir in Bulgari. Mind you, no one believed that we could make fine wines in Bulgari. In fact, as you know better than me, Sassicaia was a table wine for the longest time until the government sort of created a private appellation for Sassicaia, which is on DOC today. So
And the region and Bulgari was known as a rosé producer.
yeah, absolutely. You know, in the Aurelia, I remember seeing
Yeah.
Vermentino Rosé sold here. You know, so there was never really a tradition. Also, Maremma was considered to be a land forgotten by gods and populated by pirates. You know, it was the land of no one. But in a sense, I think that what maybe unconsciously I've done, because it's always very difficult to have consciousness of your actions while you're doing them. But I think in retrospective, I've assimilated notions and way of being and thought process, and hopefully a little bit of audacity to be able to imagine something different. And Chakra is not copying anyone. Chakra, of course, is inspired by our fellow winemakers. Is inspired by many different amazing Pinot made by men, women, in Burgundy, Oregon, New Zealand. You know, we're all in the same industry, but then your inspiration, it's one thing because it might affect some of your methods or some of your tools, whether you want to pick cement or whether you want to use only indigenous yeast, whether you want to beehive, what's the best method to treat your barrels, the way to clean them. So all of that, of course, is an inspiration when you draw some ideas. But then your microclimatic condition and your light and your soil composition, your minerals, as well as the genetic material are completely different. So I believe that we are in a way in the middle of the old world to the left and the new world to the right, because we provide, I think, a certain floral aspects that maybe you don't have as much in Burgundy. You know, our light is stronger. It's very, very clean environment. We're in a desert, and so there's a lot of wind, but at the same time, it's got some old, new world characteristic. You know, I think there is a transparency and an energy to the wines that sometimes reminds me a little bit more of the new world.
Yes.
So I think we're somewhat in the middle, and I believe one of the reasons that people enjoying success is that they're ready to be drunk very young, these wines. You know, of course, 32 will benefit for some bottle aging. It goes without saying, but it's very, very pleasant in the beginning. And I think that this is also one of the elements that I learned or observed from Sassicaia, which is a wine that is delicious in the beginning, but also it ages very well, you know.
What and also it's planted on its own rootstocks, right?
Yes, of course. This, you know, for us was the biggest luxury. This was really winning the lottery.
Yeah.
There is a lot of different ideas and theories about grafted vineyards. Of course, you know, the plant has no deviation because it's not being cut and grafted onto something else. And I think we are able to pick earlier without this greenness, also because of this engrafting
Oh,
process.
interesting.
Yeah, so
Wow.
they add in my view a certain uniqueness to this because we don't have clones. We're not repeating the same genetic material
Yeah.
over and over. And if you come to Chakra, I think I like to look at it. Maybe one way to say it is a little bit of an image of a village. You have very old vines, but you have also vines that are only, let's say, 50 years old. And you have vines that are 30 years old. And then even in 32, you have vines that are maybe 20 years old that where I planted when I got there. So it's a village in the sense that you have the eldest and the youngest. And this different population of a different age is very representative a little bit of our society as well. And so I think that this is another element that we believe it adds to the complexity of the wine, and it shapes its character. Does it make sense what
So
I'm saying?
totally, I'm like thinking about all sorts of comparisons, like classical music, where
Yeah,
people are they just try to replicate Beethoven, and it's just like clones with winemakers trying to replicate the wines of Burgundy from the Dijon clone. But then there's with classical music, it's hard to find um, com- people that write new classical music and create something completely new. And that's essentially what you're doing because these are these vineyards through massive selection and through the years have become unique to themselves. And now you're just making unique wines without any um, filter with the roots, root stocks or anything. And that's why the wines really have this unique energy and character that really, I just love the wines for that. I love drinking them. And that's why your wine had to be the wine of the year last year, particularly also with COVID and all these horrible things going on in the world, the environment, global warming. It was, it's like the wine for the time to take us all back to, the origins to why we love wine, but also why we love Earth. It was so amazing, Piero, what you've done. Like, and what do you do now for for the future, man? Like, I, I guess you have to just work so hard to just maintain it.
at Chakra, our job and responsibility is to live in the uncomfortable zone, the one that is the limits of consciousness and understanding. In that zone, that makes us feel always very awkward because we don't know how things will go. And that's the real space which allows you to learn, to make mistakes, to push the envelope. So when you're operating at the limits of the known, this is when you can learn. So we have a big program of science-free wines
That's
that are
so
made
cool.
only with our tools from the individuals, and we need to have a separate building so that there is no influence of yeast or anything that can
Oh
do a
yeah,
yeah, that's a little bit the idea. And so that will become maybe what, if you want to draw reference with fashion, maybe that would be our haute couture, in the sense that all the experiments will go in there. There will be no
yeah,
machinery, no equipment, everything will be done in an artisanal way. And also, James,
wonderful.
all of this to try to prove to other fellow farmers, other fellow vignerons, other fellow winemakers, that you can make chemical-free wines and still make a living.
Yeah, and make really excellent drinkable wines. And I think that what's exciting about that too is that everyone's well, many people search for authenticity. That's what I think that the whole natural wine movement, not the political size part of it, but actually the sincere part of the consumer and also the winemaker and trying to make a sincere, honest, and authentic product is very admirable, and I think that the Treinta, the Chacra 18, what you're doing already is already on, totally dedicated to that with this new idea of even making a more, let's say, pure wine or honest wine, wholesome. You could use the word wholesome if you wanted to
Yeah.
use more American or holistic. I think that that's really exciting. So I can't wait to taste some of the new, some of your new experiments. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think as for anything, the idea for us it's to make, you said before, people refer as natural wine, but to make them in the cleanest, most interesting way possible. I personally don't really like red, and I don't particularly like too strong volatility. A little bit of volatility I always like because there is a certain freshness in wines, and so it's a challenge because everything has to be perfect in the sense that if your setting is not conducive to cleanliness and the right temperature, you can have a propagation of bacteria. So it's very, 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 very difficult to make natural wines free of all these deviation. There
Of
are
course.
ways, but you have to be very diligent.
But it's possible, as a lot of the great old wines we've been lucky enough to have in our times. So I'm really excited to see what you can pull off. But listen, um, my friend, thank you so much for the conversation. And again, congratulations to you and your team in Argentina. And again, thank you for having the foresight and the courage to es- create chakra and make the wine and go to the middle of nowhere on planet wine and make something so unique. I really respect you and thank you as a wine lover, not just as a wine critic, but as someone that loves to drink your wines and really appreciate what you're doing there. And also having been there, such a beautiful part of the world, too.
James,
Thank you so much.
you started by grabbing the bottle of 32, and we've converted my uncle Lodovico Antinori, who is
Oh my
also,
God.
you see, who is also holding
Yeah,
a bottle of Chakra 32. So
we love
one
it.
of the aspects of the repercussion of COVID is that I stayed in Maremma now since June, and I've been spending a lot of time with Lodovico, who was a trailblazer himself.
Yes, of course.
Uh,
I love
you
Ludovico.
know very well. He's the creator of your beloved Masseto, and
Yeah,
uh,
and
and so it's
Arnolaya.
just refreshing to see these traditional winemakers embracing what we are doing, embracing organic and biodynamic wines, and that means that in a way we are the one thanking you by. I think you're the first one that has premiated, not just with us, but also so with Comando G. You've premiated and encouraged a whole new um, way of making wine, which is traditional, of course, but some people want to refer to as a new way of making wine. And I think that it takes a lot of courage, for lack of a better word, and a lot of also insight to understand that this is the direction that we're going and there is no coming back. We see it
That's
in
right.
food, we see it in everything. So um, thank you. I know that it must be always very challenging when you're taking a direction like this. I'm sure that you're asking yourself a lot of questions, but thank you for thinking of us, recognizing. I don't feel that you recognize just us. I feel that in terms of chakra, I feel that you recognize a movement,
You're absolutely
and
right.
and I think that this will encourage a lot of people. There is a lot of great organic and biodynamic wines out there, and I think this will stimulate the consumer curiosity to go and try. So thank
Thank
you
you.
for doing what you're doing. We appreciate you. We know the amount of work that you do every day for our industry, and so it's from the bottom of the heart and from every single employee at Bodega Chacra, we want to say un grande grazie.
Okay. Okay. Hermano, fratello, and thank you again. We'll see you soon.
Big Tuesday.
Abbraccio, abbraccio. Ciao,
Salute.
caro.
Ciao, ciao.
Salute, ciao.